morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ and welcome to your detailed forecast update for Boxing Day, 26th of December 2024. We've got a lot to get through today, including some heavy showers and thunderstorms expected across the southeast of Queensland and into the northeast of New South Wales. Heavy rainfall also expected up in Queensland's far north. Again on the forecast, we'll talk about a weak tropical low offshore from Western Australia and the chance that has as a tropical cyclone, the extreme fire danger ratings around Victoria and the warm temperatures as well heading down there. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing, but we're going to get stuck straight into things today over into the southeast of Queensland. We're going to wrap this stuff up with some severe thunderstorm talk, at least to begin with. They do have a couple of severe thunderstorms on the forecast, at least over the next couple of days. Nothing expected tonight, of course, as we've talked about in the last forecast updates. It could be an isolated storm or two much further out inland into New South Wales around Lightning Ridge and Bulgett, but the thunderstorm risk is still very, very minimal and nothing in the way of severe stuff is expected. But the setup is going to become better and better as the coming couple of days roll around. So tomorrow afternoon, we'll likely see a good severe thunderstorm set up between Newcastle and Kempsey, at least around the Barrington Tops outside of Taree, and also a couple of good storms possible extending inland around the south central Queensland area, out from St George up to Roma and then inland out towards Augathella and Tambo. Some good thunderstorms are possible out there, but again, they're going to be very isolated and pretty quick to fire up and then collapse in on themselves, so I wouldn't really be expecting anything crazy there. Saturday is when these thunderstorms start to become a little bit more interesting, at least on the forecast, or at least with what the forecast is suggesting. You can see some great thunderstorms into the central Queensland area extending up between Taroom through Rolleston, Emerald and then up to Claremont, and then another cluster of good thunderstorms expected inland from Charters Towers up to Croydon and Georgetown in far northern Queensland. You can see those thunderstorms there actually look to be really severe with some heavy rainfall up there. They're more likely going to be convective thunderstorms that blow up in the afternoon and evening, typical for this time of the year, and they're likely to drop quite a significant amount of rainfall. It's the thunderstorms down here that we're more interested in. The ones around Emerald and Rolleston, they do have a good chance of going severe on Saturday afternoon. Conditions are looking pretty good for them as well. The convective available potential energy values, the amount of instability and energy available for these thunderstorms, it's looking good. It's not looking amazing or anything like that, but it certainly isn't looking bad for these thunderstorms. They could make the most of some pretty good conditions here. It looks like the setup in terms of the winds as well, you're going to have those warm, dry air coming in from the southeast across central Queensland and into New South Wales, and then you'll have that warm moist air coming in from the Coral Sea as well, so it's really going to converge around the Rolleston and Emerald area, and we'll likely see some decent thunderstorms fire up on Saturday night, which would be really good to see. A couple of people really hanging out for some good thunderstorms in here that I'm aware of, and they haven't had a good thunderstorm outbreak for nearly a month now around the Rolleston, Taroom and in June area, so we could be seeing a couple of really good thunderstorms on Saturday night. Access G3 and GFS forecast model also suggesting those thunderstorms as well. Into the southeast of Queensland, there'll be a few storms here and there. It's going to be a hard one, that's for sure. Brisbane top of 33, and it's going to be 33 at 4 o'clock on this forecast as well. In fact, it's going to be a little bit hotter than that as a maximum on Saturday, a very warm top of 36, so it is going to be a scorcher around the Brisbane metro area, and that will give way to a couple of convective thunderstorms forecast to blow up in the afternoon and evening hours of Saturday. You can see some good thunderstorms expected out into the scenic rim. I mean, maybe not good thunderstorms, but a couple of thunderstorms expected out there, and this is certainly something that I'm going to revisit in tomorrow morning's forecast update, because the thunderstorms out towards Boonabo Desert and Wollongong, that sort of area, they can really blow up quite dramatically, off very little as well, so I can't wait to see what the convective forecast models have to make of this system here. It certainly looks like something interesting could happen on Saturday evening, so keep that in the back of your head. Sunday, it's a pretty similar setup, all things considered, especially out towards Rolleston and Emerald. It's going to be a duplicate of Saturday by the looks of things in terms of what thunderstorms are expected. Some good thunderstorms also possible along the central Queensland coastline, just adjacent to the coastline. Actually, some thunderstorms extending north up towards Mackay and Townsville up there. They shouldn't deliver too much rainfall, but those thunderstorms there, they can deliver rainfall in dramatic fashion, but they will be few and far between, enough to not cause substantial problems in terms of the rainfall. Into the southeastern corner of Queensland on Sunday, some good thunderstorms possible as well. In fact, that does look like it's going to be kind of the box day for the severe thunderstorm risk, especially for locations between Toowoomba up to Kingaroy. It looks like some really good thunderstorms have made their way onto the forecast there. And if we were to take a look at what's driving these thunderstorms, convective available potential energy through the roof along the surface trough, especially into the northern reaches of the Gold Coast, into the Sunshine Coast, convective available potential energy values up to about 2,500. Again, a pretty arbitrary number, but if you've been watching the channel for a good couple of months, you'll know that 2,500 is on the upper echelon of what they normally see, especially at this time of the year as well. The values around this time of the year typically hovering between 1,500 and 2,000, so 2,500 is a pretty healthy day day indeed. Plenty of instability in the air as well, just considering the warm temperatures that Brisbane's going to get. It's going to be a very mucky top again of 33 degrees with the humidity values hovering at around 50% rather. So it certainly is going to feel quite a lot warmer than those maximums both on Saturday and Sunday for Brisbane. Those thunderstorms are still very severe on Monday by the looks of things. You can see in a very similar fashion to what they were firing up yesterday. Some good thunderstorms expected around Roma, Tarooma and inland towards Edsvold as well, and up towards Billawheeler. Some really good thunderstorms look like they're going to be firing up along the low pressure line here, and also some good thunderstorms expected along the border in Queensland and along New South Wales outside of Thailand and Goondiwindi. Some good thunderstorms forecast there. It looks like there's going to be a bit of a flow in on the Sunshine Coast. These thunderstorms here look to me that they're going to be tending more sort of to rainfall or heavy showers at times here. So rainfall accumulations on Monday afternoon and evening could be pretty significant along the Sunshine Coast, and these thunderstorms here, when they fire up as well, they begin firing up late Monday morning actually on this forecast. They will go severe pretty quickly, and they look like they're going to be, by the late evening, they're going to be severe warned for heavy to locally intense rainfall. Some really significant rainfall totals are possible on Monday, especially around the Taroom, Billawheeler and Edsvold area. Just in this sort of pocket here, some really good rainfall accumulations are possible, and they get better and better the closer you get to the coastline. Billawheeler really does look like it could be in the hot seat for some good thunderstorms on Monday afternoon and evening. These thunderstorms, they could be dropping accumulations up towards 70 or 80 millimeters. Again, it's from thunderstorms, so I cannot for the life of me make an accurate prediction for specific towns in terms of what rainfall is expected at what time and exactly when it's going to be rolling in through. So again, we will be revisiting this at a future forecast update. Probably on Saturday or Sunday I'll be able to tell you exactly what rainfall accumulations are expected for what location, but at this time that would be a silly effort to make, just considering that these are thunderstorms and they will be very unpredictable and things will change. Later on Monday night into early Tuesday morning, you can see that rainfall pipes up again for the Sunshine Coast. Looks like we'll get a bit of an onshore flow fire up here, and that will drive a couple of showers and thunderstorms ashore. This onshore flow here could bring another 50 to 80 millimeters or so to the southeastern corner of Queensland. The forecast models often dramatically underestimate how much rain and how intense the rainfall is going to be from weather events like this. So this is certainly something that we're going to have to revisit in a future forecast update as well. Those rainfall events, when you get those shower lines just streaming along the coastline, as isolated as they can be, they can drop 150 millimeters in 6 hours, and there's been probably more times than you could count on your hand that they have happened this year across the southeast of Queensland. So certainly something we want to take a look at in a future forecast update. Just a heads up that is now on the cards. Tuesday's going to be a wild one. That onshore flow really going to provide a nice severe thunderstorm outbreak across the southeast of Queensland. Some gnarly severe storms expected along the Sunshine Coast as well. I would be expecting large hailstones, heavy rainfall and damaging winds on Tuesday afternoon. We are looking quite far out into the future, especially for thunderstorms, so you can always take this forecast with a very heavy pinch of salt. But like I said, good rainfall accumulations possible with these thunderstorms as well. Another 50 to 80 millimeters possible for some already saturated communities, and depending on what thunderstorms roll through what areas, especially for locations between Kingaroy, between the line of Kingaroy up to Billawheeler, just in this little pocket here, considering they're going to be getting 3 or 4 days of potentially severe thunderstorms, they're definitely going to be rainfalled out by or come Monday or Tuesday. So the rainfall there is going to be a very significant factor in the forecast. We're really going to have to hammer in on what rainfall is expected, because they could be seeing a bit of a flooding concern come Tuesday or Wednesday, especially with these thunderstorms. And I wouldn't be surprised if heading into 2025 we had multiple rivers at the minor or the moderate flooding alert across southeastern Queensland. Again, like I've said for the nth time in this video, something that we want to revisit in a future forecast update. This is just a heads up that some substantial rainfall is on the cards across the southeast of Queensland and also into the New South Wales northeast as well. And this rainfall will continue throughout Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning as well. More thunderstorms expected here and there along the Sunshine Coast on Wednesday afternoon and evening, extending up into the central Queensland coastline, the Wide Bay area, north of Bundaberg, actually up to Gladstone, Agnes Water and Rockhampton. Some good thunderstorms possible up there. It looks like the forecast models are having a bit of a difficult time in predicting how much rainfall is expected, but just having a look at this with a bit of a low pressure system expected to wrap itself up just offshore, we might be seeing a bit of a rainfall event materialize here, at least a couple of hours of some substantial rainfall on both Tuesday and Wednesday across the Sunshine Coast and into the central Queensland area. And I'm not talking about anything crazy, but maybe 50 millimeters or so. So the rainfall accumulations there really will pile on if this forecast does come into fruition. And it looks like it's just going to be a stormy/showery period into the first week of 2025. Thursday and Friday both have storms on the forecast before things finally calm down on Sunday the 5th of January. And a couple more storms expected later on to the forecast period. It looks like at least early January is going to be pretty significant in terms of thunderstorm activity. Certainly is going to be a wild end to 2024 and this month, just with thunderstorms across the southeast of Queensland though. And I'm very aware of how much time we've spent talking about southeast Queensland Queensland. But let's give a rainfall forecast right now. This is 7-day rainfall accumulations from today until next Wednesday. You can see peak rainfall accumulations on this forecast here, about 100 millimeters or so. That's a very good number to work with right now. 100 is a very good base number for some of these locations, especially for areas going from a line north of Boonah up to Tiara or Mount Perry. In fact, between this line here, 100 millimeters is a very good base number, but depending on what thunderstorms you get, those rainfall accumulations could exceed 200 millimeters or even 250 millimeters, and this is certainly something we're going to have to take a look at day by day because it's from thunderstorms. So thunderstorms, they will provide that unpredictable rainfall. Someday you might get absolutely nothing, and then the next day you might get 100 millimeters, and with that rainfall adding up over time, you can start looking at accumulations that really are quite significant and can cause some significant flooding problems. Brisbane, I'd say at least 50 millimeters is coming through in the next week. Gold Coast at least 40 millimeters, and then inland into the scenic rim, a minimum of 80 millimeters is coming through. Warwick to Toowoomba about 30 to 50 millimeters apiece. Kingaroy closer to 60 millimeters. Billawheeler probably up towards 70 millimeters coming through in the next week. Rolleston, Dingo and Emerald about 20 to 80 millimeters is expected. Maybe 20 is a bit too low, but somewhere between that 40 to 80 millimeter mark would be expected out there. I'd be surprised if they picked up any more rainfall, just considering they're only expecting the next few days of thunderstorms to be significant. And then in June and Taroom as well, some good falls expected out there between 30 and 60 millimeters, depending on what thunderstorms come through and what locations is going to have a dramatic impact on the forecast. Of course, if I've left your head scrambled with this forecast, then please let me know in the comment section down below, and I'd be happy to provide you a more detailed and robust forecast for your location. But again, this is certainly something that I'm not happy with this forecast that I've produced here. I don't think that this is the forecast that Southeast Queensland has wanted to hear or wake up to this morning in terms of the nitty-gritty and the details, but it's from thunderstorms. It's way too unpredictable, and the forecast model's been flip-flopping and bouncing up and down like a yo-yo in terms of rainfall accumulations for the last couple of days. So I'll be able to give you a definitive answer roll around Saturday or Sunday, but at this time there's just way too much uncertainty for me to be comfortable in making a definitive forecast at this time. This is more of just a heads up with what is rolling through. Anyways, up into the far north of Queensland, let's see if we can speed run through this. We do have some substantial rainfall accumulations on the cards into the New Year's period. You can see here for the first week of 2025, accumulations will be in excess of about 200 millimeters across some of these locations here, and that's just from an onshore flow that's going to set it up. I believe on Thursday, this onshore flow really does begin to pipe up for the Cassowary Coast. Yeah, through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, showers expected to be streaming in ashore. Nothing heavy, but when you're talking about 30 millimeters a day for a week, you're talking about 200 millimeters over the course of that week. Now, this rainfall is, of course, no real concern for far north Queensland. They're built to handle this, and 200 millimeters really is a storm in a teacup, especially for Innisfail and Tully and the communities especially adjacent to the coastline. But this is certainly something that they should have a look at, just considering the rainfall that has fallen over the past week. I think it's only about a week ago when they had some really substantial accumulations move through here from that rain depression / tropical low in the Coral Sea. So the river catchment, certainly they're already still full of water, and any extra rainfall is going to become runoff pretty much. So we will be taking a look at that in greater detail as this rainfall rolls around here. The forecast still a little bit too uncertain, and it is a pretty new addition on the forecast as well. But if you take a look at it, accumulations up to about 200 millimeters, and around Innisfail and Tully, just with how they're placed and their proximity to the coastline, you can probably get away with, based off this forecast, saying that 300 millimeters is possible. I'm taking this forecast with a heavy pinch of salt, considering other forecast models are not fully on board with it yet. The GFSA is actually calling for some really substantial rainfall out towards Mount Surprise and Chillagoe, up to about 150 millimeters there, which for the GFS is a boatload. If you were to place that on the eastern weather forecast, you'd be looking at about 500 millimeters. So by the looks of things, the GFS is suggesting a bit of a rainfall event / rain depression to funnel a little bit of rainfall ashore next weekend on the 4th and the 5th of January respectively. So we will keep a very close eye on this forecast here. It looks like it is a bit of an interesting aspect, but at this time I'm not 100% sure of exactly what to make of it, and as such I wouldn't be comfortable in saying exactly what is expected for some of these locations. Certainly a very interesting thing though, the Axis G3, it doesn't go out that far, and again they're not calling for exactly anything special on the rainfall front, but yeah, it looks like along the Cassowary Coast and up to about Cairns, up to but somewhere between 80 and 160 millimeters is possible. Innisfail and Tully and out towards South Mission Beach and some of the locations just inland from those locations up to about 250 millimeters is possible, and then for Atherton and Raven, so between 50 and 100 millimeters looks possible as well, at least over the next 14 days. So the rainfall is going to be pretty evenly spread across far northern Queensland by the looks of things. It actually extends up into the Daintree rainforest. Port Douglas expecting about 150 millimetres, Wudgel about 120, Cooktown about 100 millimetres, and then even further up the Cape York Peninsula, Lockhart River looking at about 100 millimetres, and this rainfall really doesn't stop until it gets up to about Thursday Island. This is going to be a pretty widespread onshore flow, plenty of showers to talk about, that's for sure. Certainly an interesting aspect to the forecast up in far northern Queensland, and I think just the Queensland forecast in general. I know that the Queensland viewers make up about 50% of my market, so I do try and give them extra airtime just to really hammer home the details here, but up in Queensland, this is not a forecast that is necessarily something that I'm really proud of. It is the best that I can produce and the best that pretty much any forecast can produce in terms of what rainfall is expected, but at this time there is just way too many uncertainties, at least with the forecast models that I'm using and have access to make accurate predictions at this time, because a lot of this stuff is coming through in the long range. Regardless, some good thunderstorms expected across the southeast of Queensland, some really severe ones expected on both Monday, Tuesday and into Wednesday morning across the southeast of Queensland, and some good falls are possible as a result of it, and we can say for sure that there are going to be places picking up about 200 millimetres over the next week in the southeast of Queensland, and then between week 1 and week 2 up in the far north of Queensland, at least 200 millimetres is going to be coming through. Stock standard stuff for this time of the year, especially the stuff up in far northern Queensland, but it still could cause some flooding concerns, especially down in the southeast. But let's head out of Queensland right now, and we're going to switch things up dramatically and head over the Cocos-Keeling Islands, where we do have a weak tropical low beginning to spin itself up here. Now, I never really gave this system a fighting chance in hell, but it does look like it is beginning to spin itself up quite nicely, and this does have a shot of becoming a fully fledged tropical low over the coming couple of hours, and you can see it here on the satellite imagery if it wants to play it through. I don't think it's too keen to on doing that for me today, unfortunately, but you can see in terms of its latest imagery, the latest frames, it is beginning to blow up some solid convection around the centre and beginning to show signs of internal rotation. Wind observations on the Cocos-Keeling Islands haven't been anything special. I mean, 16 knots out of the east, gusting up to about 30 knots here. That's nowhere close to gale force winds, and I don't think this system will attain gale force winds for quite a while. And you can see here on the forecast, it does have a fighting chance in wrapping itself up, but to be honest, it's probably at its strongest now. It's going to get really kind of beaten to bits by another system that's expected to wrap itself into it, and it will struggle to come this weekend and into early next week, and it looks like, in fact, it might actually die off come early next week as it heads over into the southwest Indian Ocean, yet really struggles as it gets into the southwest Indian Ocean because of high wind shear. But yeah, an interesting thing on the forecast nonetheless, it's kind of two tropical lows rolled into one. We've got that second one over here and the first one here. I believe this is tropical low 07U and this is tropical low 08U. Interesting stuff on the forecast and interesting stuff to see on the satellite picture. Of course, not a tropical cyclone threat to Western Australia. Neither of these systems are threats to land, and the only threat to the Cocos-Keeling Islands is kind of the rainfall at this time, which isn't going to be that heavy. And again, the Cocos Islands being an island country, their biggest threat from rainfall is, of course, puddles. So we will keep a close eye on things with these systems. I doubt that they're going to get to tropical cyclone status. We'll revisit them tomorrow morning, and I'll produce further updates on them as necessary. Now let's head over into Victoria, where we do have this beefy cold front that's been streaming through the Great Australian Bight throughout the course of last night. This thing here has some power, and it's actually going to cause some really substantial problems for New South Wales and Victoria, with those significant fires burning in the Gippsland region, also into the western corner of the state as well, those fires, and those fire danger ratings expected to skyrocket today. And you can take a look at this on the fire danger rating map here. For the first, we can see fire danger ratings across much of the northern parts of Victoria are at that extreme risk right now. Very significant fire danger ratings across parts of interior Victoria. Oh no, hang on, that's on New Year's Day, but they're still extreme across interior parts of Victoria and into New South Wales. The forecast doesn't actually change that much, with temperatures expected to exceed 42 degrees Celsius today across Mildura and parts of the western communities, and very strong winds being brought across by this frontal system here. In fact, you can see wind gusts maxing out at about 60 to 70 kilometers an hour. In fact, they will actually get a little bit stronger than that by around 6 or 7 p.m. and even stronger than that later on into the night around sort of Bendigo and Broad. You can see those wind speeds there exceeding about 40-45 knots. So it's up to about 90 kilometers an hour. Very strong indeed. These wind speeds will cause some significant hassles for fire crews that are going to be battling these pretty much unbattleable blazes in the northern parts of Victoria. Heed all warnings with your Shire office. Make sure that you are reading them very closely, evacuating them, taking notice of them, and do not play around with them. These are substantial fires, and this is a big fire danger day today across interior parts of Victoria. It's going to be a very warm one as well, so make sure you are inside and do not wait to evacuate. If you are given an evacuation order, it is for your own good, and you need to get out of that location no matter the reason. You just need to get out of it. These fires are going to be moving really quickly. You will not be able to outrun them. You will not be able to outdrive them. Some of these fires will be moving up to about 130 kilometers an hour along the ground. They are going to be smoking along, so it is very, very dangerous to attempt to outrun them. If you are placed under an evacuation order, make sure you do get out of there. It is for your own good, and there will be significant losses to property today, and hopefully fire crews can prevent the significant losses to homes and families, but unfortunately there is going to be some significant torching of farmland out into interior parts of Victoria. That's just the way these fires go. It's going to be a nasty fire season. This is the worst setup for fire danger ratings that we have had since the 2019-2020 Black Friday bushfires across interior parts of New South Wales and Victoria along the snowy mountains up there. Terrible fire danger ratings today. It is going to be a very scary day as well. We'll be watching very closely across Victoria and New South Wales, and if these fires get really out of hand, I will be releasing an evening update on them. They aren't the absolute worst they could be. I mean, we can't really see them on satellite imagery right now. You can see there is going to be still a little bit of smoke moving around. You can see a bit of smoke here embedded in the cloud that's streaming through parts of Victoria now. That's coming around this sort of area here from the western half of the state. But these fires, they will blow up dramatically tonight. They're going to have a great forecast indeed. And unfortunately, there's not too much in the way of rainfall to stop these fires from really moving through and picking up steam here. And the rainfall that does fall will probably evaporate before it gets to the ground, just considering the intensity of some of these fires here. So it is not a very good setup at all for Victoria, and a pretty concerning one indeed, that's for sure. It's going to be a very warm one across all parts of Victoria today as well, even into Melbourne, expecting a top of 37 before that cool change comes in later on tonight and cools things off. And they'll be waiting out for that, that's for sure. It's going to be a hot one in Victoria. Anyways, that is all that I have time for today. If you've got any feedback or comments, then please do leave them in the comment section down below. I'd be more than happy to get back to you as well. Thank you so much for all the Christmas wishes. Yesterday we're back with the frequent daily updates. We're not stopping across the wet season this year, that's for sure. So thank you so much for all of the support across all of the recent videos. I apologise again to Queensland. I apologise profusely about today's forecast. It is not the best that I can, that I would like to produce on this channel here, but it is the absolute best that I can do with the information that I have available, and I do hope that that does suffice for the Queensland population. However, again, answers, they mean so much more than shoddy forecast. So I would really like to produce a proper forecast tomorrow. So if you're not happy with this one, stick around to tomorrow morning's forecast update. I'd be more than happy to provide a much more detailed forecast over there. And of course, if you've got any specific questions or comments for certain locations, I would be more than happy to respond to them throughout the course of today. But that is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.